Mastering planning permissions and permitted development rights. Convert commercial to residential like a pro. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, right, so I have been getting quite a few questions about planning permissions, permitted development rights, and everything in between. So I thought today we could sit down and have a quick overview in this video of each of those things. And so I've broken this video down into little bite-sized chunks. So grab your coffee, grab a tea, whatever it is, sit down and let's get into the video. And this is something that if you are an aspiring sort of property investor or you want to get into property investing, you will be working with a lot of architectural technicians and consultants or architects, people like this, a lot of other professionals. So this is something that you really want to get to grips with and just have that wider bit of knowledge when you're dealing with these consultants. I'm going to chuck in some cheeky insider tips from my whole 20 years plus of being an architectural technologist and being an aspiring property investor that you're not going to want to miss. So stay tuned until the end. And these tips are really going to help you to keep your project on track, within budget, really help prevent scope creep. Trust me, I have learned the hard way through my professional life and through the past few years of me personally getting involved in property investing, and I've learned the hard way. So I'm going to tell you some of the things just so that you don't learn the hard way either. Guys, I've literally broken this video down into sections as well, so you can follow along and skip to places that you really will have more interest in. So what we're going to be discussing today is permitted development, planning permissions as a whole, planning permissions for change of use. We're going to be touching on building control and engaging with your local authority planning department. So what are planning permissions? Planning permission is basically the thumbs up, the green light from your local authority for you to go ahead with your project. And that's whether you are expanding the building, whether you are doing a change of actual business use if it's a commercial property, or whether you're extending, or whether you're knocking down and rebuilding totally. These are all things that you're going to have to put through to the local authority so that they can check your plans and just make sure that it's in line with their local planning policy, that they're looking at things like, for example, parking spaces. For example, if you're proposing to build a whole new block of flats on a piece of land, they're going to want to see the transport and infrastructure, whether there's enough parking spaces for if it's near a local school, whether there's enough parking spaces for your development, and looking if there's enough space for the local residents that live in the area as well. So noise, traffic, everything like that is in a nutshell what the council is going to be looking at to make sure that your idea of your development meets their idea of what they want to see the local area grow or develop into, and making sure that they match. And you obviously do this by going in for planning permission and going through a whole application with them. And planning permission is something that's needed if the work that you are proposing to be carried out actually meets the definition of development. And this definition is actually set out in section 55 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. So this can include structural alterations, any type of construction, and rebuilding, and most demolitions. Material change of use of the land or the building, and bear with me guys, we are going to touch more on this later on in the video, so this is really important one. Engineering operations, for example, groundworks, mining operations, subdivision of a building, for example, if you're splitting the dwelling up into two, for example, making two flats, or in general, making them two different units or two dwellings, and any other operation that would usually be done by a builder. And my last project that I did literally came under that, so I had to go for full planning permission. By the way, my name's Sabrina and I am documenting my whole property journey here on YouTube. And as I've just said, my last project is on here on a complete playlist as well, so you can have a look at that if you want to. And guys, think about subscribing as well if you're new here. Thanks. And guys, there's a lot more information on the gov.com website as well, where it goes into even more detail on this. And you can also, for reference, look on the planning portal that will give you a lot more information as well. So when we compare this with permitted development rights, which is a lot lot more flexible. Now, permitted development rights will allow a house owner to literally alter their homes without the need to go in full planning permission. Now, the most common types of work that will be allowed under permitted development rights will be things like internal remodelling, as these normally don't entail enlarging the building or extending the building anyway. So things that are internal, sort of relocating of rooms and stuff like that within a building, again, subject. And also some extensions and additions. Now with this, be really careful because they're all subject to size and height restrictions. Loft conversions, some garage conversions, outbuildings and some minor operations. And what I mean by that is installing some fences, but again, be careful because that is subject to height restrictions as well. Some change of use as well. For example, you can do agricultural to residential under specific conditions. But within all of that, you really do have to bear in mind your property type, the designated area, whether your property is in a conservation area or not, Article 4 directions, all of these things come into play as to whether you can do all of these under permitted development rights or not. And if you are confused, you can always ask myself or me and my team for advice. All of my contact details are in the description box below. So permitted development rights and mixed use properties. When you're planning to convert to a residential use, it's really important to understand whether you need the permitted development or not. It's really key to understand the local planning permissions on this. Some properties might fall under permitted development rights, which will allow you to actually convert them without the need for the full planning permissions, and other properties will not, depending on what the type of use is. So it's really important to understand that, check that and consult and speak to your local planning authority just so you can get an understanding of this. So it's really important to check if your property qualifies for permitted development rights or not with your local authority, which this leads me on to my next point, and that is planning permission for change of use. So when you are converting commercial property or a mixed use property to a residential, you might have to officially change the use of the building first. So as I'm filming this video, you can actually change commercial properties which are classed E to a residential use which is class C3 without actually needing to go for full planning permission. You can do this through permitted development rights. So class E generally tends to cover things like offices or shops, things like that. And the project that I did, where I did convert a mixed use property into residential, it was in a conservation area as well. So I put all of that on one planning application. So we changed the class use of the property and we also did all the conservation, everything. It was all mocked up within one planning application. So my next point is building regulations compliance. Really quickly, because obviously I've got other videos on the channel as well which go into more detail. This will make sure that your building covers all of the safety aspects of the project. So for example, this will ensure the structural integrity of the building. You'll be looking at fire safety, all insulation, all stuff like that. Everything like that will come under your building control application, especially fire safety. That is a really big one. But again, I've got more videos on the channel that go into this into more detail. So my next point is engagement with the local planning authority. So early engagement with the local planning authority is going to be really great for you. So early engagement is key for any of the projects that you're going to be doing, especially if you're doing a really ambitious project. It can help clarify the local authority's priorities and also identify any potential challenges that could be passed your way via planning. And it could identify any planning related challenges that you could be faced with. Even if you do a pre-application or with the local authority, it still doesn't mean that the decision is set in stone for you. So just be warned with that. This is more of a sort of easy, airy conversation with the planning authority before you put in a full planning submission. It's more of a conversational piece for you. So guys, a few quick things to discuss if you're thinking about converting from commercial to residential under PDR, permitted development rights. Number one, make sure you check the eligibility of your property. For example, is it class E? That's an easy win. If it is, that's another check towards permitted development rights. Maybe consider doing a prior approval or a pre-application just to see where you stand with the local authority. Really make sure you consult with professionals. If if you're unsure about anything. For example, my details are in the description box below if you need to discuss anything architectural related. For permitted development rights, you could go for a certificate of lawfulness. Again, I will be doing a more in-depth video on a certificate of lawfulness application in the future. So for projects that are carried out under permitted development rights, you can get a certificate of lawfulness as well. And guys, I will be doing a more in-depth video on this process in the future, so subscribe for that. And guys, if you're thinking, you know what, Sabrina, I need to know practically from A to B the whole planning process of converting a mixed or commercial property into residential, I have a playlist right here for you to watch. Thanks guys, bye.